Gaming IEMs have become a popular pick in the world of gaming, with one of the best that I have tried being the Oriveti bleqk Dynabird. From the build to the look, it gives off the edgy gamer aesthetic people have come to expect from a gaming product. The Dynabird isn't a gaming specific product, but it specifically does well in certain gaming scenarios. It's a great example of an audio focused product doing much better than what almost every gaming company puts to the market. Oriveti primarily targets the audiophile community with the Dynabird, and for that community, it just slightly misses the mark of being great. But let's find out where it does well and where it falls apart. The Oriveti Dynabird has a metal chassis with a gunmetal sheen. Despite having a large round section, it does have that edgy gamer look. After a few weeks of use, the sheen holds up and there aren't any noticeable scratches, even when the earbuds constantly knock against each other in my pocket. There's an included carry case, but I've never been a fan of these as a carry case. I tend to ungraciously shove the IEMs into my pocket or directly into my bag. The carry case is larger than most common pocketable wireless earbud cases and has a mesh divider that allows you to carry extra tips if you so desire. The included cable is supple and doesn't tangle easily. There is no inline microphone, although most of the sweaty competitive gamers out there should already have an external mic. The cable is detachable and terminated in a 2-pin connector to the earbuds themselves. On the other end is the regular 3.5mm TRS connection. Hooking the cable behind my ear poses no issues, and the fit in the ears don't have any noticeable pressure points. I was able to wear the Dynabird for over 6 hours without any issues. One issue that I did find was that the paper material tuning filter can get damp and block out the sound coming from the drivers. It happens rarely, but it becomes a common occurrence if I wear them even an hour after leaving the bath and drying myself. If you have wet ears, this may be something to avoid. Alternatively, you can dry your ears before putting them on. In gaming, when you think of the most important part of audio for competitive games, it tends to be the words imaging and soundstage, which we here at SoundGuys call stereo imaging, which can then be split into spatial width and spatial depth. For gaming, what's more important is sound separation and isolation. Sound separation becomes more important because stereo imaging doesn't matter if you miss audio cues such as an enemy trying to flank you or a third party firing from behind. Despite actively being in a loud and terribly obvious sound of a gunfight, using the Dynabird, I was easily able to separate gunfire, enemy movement, ability cues, and team communication. The bass doesn't lose rumble, it's never overbearing, and doesn't cover up team communication. The treble doesn't have any sharp sibilants that can be distracting, and in a full firefight, there isn't a lot of painful treble that can cover up communications. The isolation comes in with a close second to keep distractions outside of the game. Passive isolation isn't the best, but it's always better than nothing. I find that despite only having passive isolation, it tends to block out a good chunk of noise, and what does go through isn't distracting compared to the sound of the game audio. In our lab testing, the Dynabird blocks out an average of 73% of noise. If you want to dive into the specific frequencies it blocks out and how much it does, check out the full review on the SoundGuys website in the description below. This leaves spatial width and depth last, despite still being considered as the most important for many gamers. For spatial depth and width, I can tell if the sound is coming from behind me with decent accuracy, which is terribly uncommon, since most IEMs you can only tell that it's coming from behind. It's even more accurate to the sides and front, to the point that I can differentiate sounds above and below me. With the Dynabird's accurate spatial width, I was easily able to tell the direction of a flanking enemy, making it easier to pre-aim to the location where they're likely to break cover. Especially useful in games like Valorant and CSGO 2, you still have to be listening closely since opponents with good game sense won't move quickly until the last moment, to avoid giving away their position. With the good spatial depth, I found it easier to tell how far a firefight is and make decisions on where you go on a map if you're playing Battle Royale games such as Apex Legends or Fortnite. The downside is that the ridiculous sound positioning accuracy can be distracting when you're just playing a cozy game. It's probably cool if your cozy games are within the horror genre, the skittering of creatures feel like they're crawling in the room around you. Mind you, I don't like horror games, so I didn't test it for very long in that scenario. You would think in action games, the Dynabird would do well, it does alright. There are rumbles in basic sections such as explosions or earthquakes, but it's still not skull rattling. The crack of gunshots doesn't pierce your ears like it would if you were right in the middle of the action. In dialogue-focused games or story-driven games, the Dynabird does very well. There's a great amount of separation that the dialogue is easy to understand while still enjoying the background music. The background music doesn't overwhelm the dialogue, even in busy scenes where the music tends to get loud in dramatic or tense moments. For listening to music, the Oriveti Dynabird is not bad, with some lack in the treble and a touch of overemphasis in sub-bass. I find the sub-bass is present but it isn't overbearing, where you can feel the hit of the kick drum without the head-rattling feeling. The bass is controlled and doesn't muddy the rest of the sound, despite the kick drum constantly thumping in the background. The vocals and instruments are still easily separable, including the warning bells of a train track in the track Rage Girl by Nina Chuba. In the mids, you can easily hear the vocals over the crashing of instruments. The vocal performance doesn't get drowned out no matter how loud and busy it gets in tracks like Garrotten by Set It Off. The Dynabird isn't the most detailed in my ears, but I still get most of the texture from the growing vocals. They don't sound compressed either. It sounds like the instruments have a good amount of space between each other. The treble lacks brilliance for my personal tastes. Crystalline chimes in the start of the track Your Text by Sundial don't feel like they get close enough to be painfully sibilant to what I prefer. This can come as a double-edged sword, but at least it doesn't feel painful or fatiguing to the ears over time. It does, however, make some stringed instruments sound a little more dull than I'm used to. Is the Oriveti Dynabird worth it? For a competitive edge, the Oriveti bleqk Dynabird is worth the money. It's not going to make you an esports superstar overnight, but it can help it make it easier to take steps to increase your rank. It does very well in giving all the information you would need to make accurate decisions with your game sense, from making sure you can hear the team communication in a loud firefight to locating the position of an enemy flank just by sound. If you're into action games, it doesn't give off the skull-rattling bass or immersiveness of feeling like you're directly in the middle of the action. Not that it does horrible, it's that there are better options out there. Just like these IEMs, which drop you deep into the action. You know that marketing statement of immersive listening experience? A lot more nebulous than accurately describing spatial width and depth.